The solitary bell stood as an omen of impending doom, its ringing piercing the stillness of the night. With each haunting clang, the ancient legend seemed to stir, beckoning me to uncover its chilling secrets. But some mysteries are better left undisturbed. This is the bone-chilling tale of my fateful quest to confront the cursed Bellringer and break the cycle of fear that has haunted generations of my family. Are you brave enough to hear the full legend? Hit like and subscribe if you dare. As the night wore on, the bell's ringing grew louder and more incessant. It seemed to be drawing closer, and its eerie clang filled the air like a haunting melody. The distant sound of it was enough to send shivers down my spine, and I couldn't help but wonder if the same horrifying creature that had terrorized my great-grandma's family was now coming for us. My great-grandma's eyes darted around the room, fear etched on her face as memories of that night flooded back. "We never found out what it was," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It was something beyond our understanding, something ancient and malevolent that had been lurking in the shadows of our land for generations. It chose that night, my birthday, to reveal itself to us." As the bell's relentless ringing echoed through the night, I could feel the weight of the darkness pressing in on us, enveloping the house in an eerie silence broken only by the haunting clang of the bell. I tried to focus on my great-grandma's story to distract myself from the overwhelming fear that was creeping up my spine. She continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "The bell, you see, was meant to warn us, to alert us of the danger that lurked in the fields. But we were too blinded by our desire to deny the truth, to face the reality of what was happening. And one by one, my family fell victim to the creature." Her eyes met mine, and I could see the pain and regret in them. If only we had listened to the warning, if only we had stayed inside and not ventured out into the darkness, maybe things would have turned out differently. But fear can be a powerful motivator, and it can lead us to make terrible choices. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding in my chest. What happened next? Did you escape? She looked away for a moment, lost in her memories. The creature came closer and closer, its presence filling the house with dread. I stayed hidden in the cupboard, clutching my candle for dear life. The ringing grew louder, and I could hear its heavy footsteps moving through the house, searching for any sign of life. "I thought I was going to die that night," she said, her voice quivering. But then, just as I was about to lose hope, the first light of dawn began to filter through the curtains. The creature let out a terrible shriek, and I heard it retreat into the darkness, its malevolent presence dissipating with the arrival of daylight. I leaned in closer, my curiosity overcoming my fear for a moment. Why did the creature fear the light of day? My great-grandma's expression darkened. Legend has it that the creature was bound to the darkness, cursed to roam the land only under the cover of night. The first light of dawn was like a barrier, forcing it to retreat to its hidden lair until the next nightfall. That's why it rang the bell, to lure its victims out of the safety of their home and into the waiting darkness. As she spoke, the ringing of the bell outside seemed to grow even louder, filling the room with an ominous presence. I could feel my heart racing, and the dread that had settled in my stomach was now spreading throughout my entire body. My great-grandma reached out and gently touched my hand. "Listen to me carefully, my dear. This creature thrives on fear, and it will do everything in its power to make you doubt yourself, to make you believe that you are powerless against it. But you must stay strong, keep your candle lit, and wait for the light of day to come. Only then will you be safe." I nodded, trying to find some semblance of courage in her words. "But what about you? How did you survive that night?" She smiled faintly. As the creature retreated, I gathered what little strength I had left and made my way back to the safety of the house. It didn't return that morning, but I knew it would come back again, night after night, searching for its next victim. So, I did the only thing I could do. I left the house, left the land that had been my family's home for generations, and never looked back. Tears welled up in her eyes, and I could feel the weight of her pain and loss. I couldn't bear to stay there, knowing what had happened to my family and what was still out there, waiting in the darkness. I moved to the city, tried to forget, but the memories of that night have haunted me ever since. The bells ringing outside seemed to be reaching a fever pitch, and I could no longer ignore the terrifying reality that was surrounding us. The darkness felt suffocating, and I clutched the candle even tighter in my hand, trying to hold on to the last glimmer of light. My great-grandma's voice brought me back from my thoughts. "You must promise me something, my dear," she said, her eyes filled with urgency. "Promise me that you will never forget this story, that you will pass it on to your children and your children's children. The only way to keep the darkness at bay is to remember, to always keep the light burning." "I promise," I said, my voice shaky but determined. "I will never forget, and I will do everything in my power to keep the light burning." As the first rays of dawn began to break through the curtains, the bells ringing outside gradually faded away, leaving behind an eerie silence. The darkness retreated, and a sense of relief washed over me. My great-grandma's eyes met mine, and she smiled, her face filled with a mixture of sadness and hope. "Thank you, my dear," she said softly. "Now go, and remember what I've told you. Keep the light burning, and never let fear consume you." With that, the sun rose in the sky, and the darkness of the night was replaced by the warmth of the day. We sat there in silence for a while longer, the memory of that terrifying night still fresh in our minds. But as the hours passed, the fear gradually subsided, replaced by a newfound determination to face whatever darkness lay ahead. In the years that followed, I kept my promise to my great-grandma. I shared her story with my brother, and together, we kept the light burning, both metaphorically and literally. We never forgot the lessons learned from that fateful night, and we taught our children the importance of facing their fears and staying strong in the face of darkness. As for the mysterious creature that had haunted my great-grandma's family, I can't say for certain if it was a mere legend or a real manifestation of evil. But one thing I know for sure, the bell in the fields was no longer a curiosity to me. It was a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the safety of the light. And so, every time I saw that bell, I couldn't help but shiver, wondering if the malevolent presence was still out there, waiting and watching, ready to strike when the night fell once again. But I also knew that as long as I held on to the lessons learned from my great-grandma's tale, as long as I kept the light burning in my heart and in my home, I would never be truly alone in the face of darkness. For the power of fear lies in our willingness to confront it, and the strength to overcome it comes from the light that shines within us. And so, I vowed to pass on my great-grandma's story to future generations, hoping that they too would find solace in the knowledge that even in the darkest of nights, there is always a glimmer of hope, a flicker of light that can guide us through the shadows and into the safety of the dawn. As the years passed, the memory of that haunting night remained etched in my mind, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the power of fear. I grew older, and with each passing year, I became more determined to uncover the truth behind the mysterious creature that had terrorized my great-grandma's family. I delved into old family records, local folklore, and historical archives, hoping to find any clue that could shed light on the dark events that had unfolded on that fateful night. My research led me down a winding path of legends and myths, stories of ancient creatures that roamed the countryside, feasting on the fear of humans. Many of these tales spoke of malevolent spirits that would take the form of animals or hide in the shadows, using their powers to manipulate and terrify those who dared cross their path. But amidst the stories of horror, there was one legend that caught my attention, a tale of a cursed creature known as the Bellringer. According to the legend, the Bellringer was an entity that had been bound to a bell centuries ago, cursed to roam the land as a harbinger of doom. Its bell would ring in the darkness, luring unsuspecting souls to their doom, and its malevolent presence would terrify all who encountered it. The Bellringer was said to be unstoppable, driven by an insatiable hunger for fear and despair. As I delved deeper into the legend, I discovered that the Bellringer's origins were tied to an ancient ritual performed by a group of dark sorcerers who sought to gain power over life and death. They had summoned the creature from the depths of the underworld and bound it to the bell, using its malevolent energy to fuel their dark rituals. But the price of such power was high, and the sorcerers paid a terrible price for their greed and arrogance. The ritual went awry, and the Bellringer broke free from its bonds, wreaking havoc and terror upon the land. The sorcerers were unable to contain the creature, and it disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind a trail of darkness and despair. Ever since that fateful night, the Bellringer had become a symbol of fear and death, a creature that haunted the nightmares of those who dared to believe in its existence. Armed with this newfound knowledge, I felt a mixture of awe and terror. The legend seemed too fantastical to be true, yet the events of my great-grandma's story resonated with the ancient tale. I couldn't help but wonder if the creature that had haunted her family was indeed the cursed Bellringer. Determined to confront the darkness that had haunted my family for generations, I embarked on a journey to the remote farmhouse in central Iowa where my great-grandma had lived. The fields stretched before me, vast and unyielding, a stark reminder of the isolation and loneliness that had surrounded her childhood home. The bell still stood in the distance, a chilling reminder of the horrors that had unfolded there. As I approached the bell, a chill ran down my spine, and I could feel the weight of centuries-old darkness pressing upon me. I reached out and touched the cold metal, trying to grasp the reality of the legend that had haunted my family for so long. The bell was rusted and worn, a silent witness to the passage of time. In that moment, I felt a strange connection with my great-grandma and the generations that had come before me. I realized that we were bound not only by blood but also by the shared history of fear and courage that had shaped our family's legacy. And just like my great-grandma, I knew that I had a choice: to succumb to the fear that threatened to consume me, or to face it head-on with the light of knowledge and understanding. With renewed determination, I made a decision that would change the course of my family's history. I would not let the darkness win. I would not let fear dictate my actions. Instead, I would use the knowledge I had gained to confront the legend of the Bellringer and put an end to its reign of terror. I sought out experts in folklore and mythology, sharing my great-grandma's story and the legend of the Bellringer with them. Together, we pieced together the clues and uncovered ancient texts that held the key to the creature's binding. It became apparent that the Bellringer's power was fueled by fear, and by confronting it with knowledge and courage, we could weaken its hold on our world. Armed with this newfound understanding, I returned to the farmhouse on the night of the autumn equinox, a time when the boundary between the mortal realm and the spirit world was said to be thin. The bell stood before me, its clang echoing in the stillness of the night. I took a deep breath, clutching a pendant inscribed with ancient runes, a protective charm that had been passed down through generations of my family. With every ounce of strength, I called upon the courage of my ancestors and faced the Bellringer head-on. As the bell's ringing grew louder and more menacing, I resisted the urge to cower in fear. Instead, I chanted ancient incantations, calling upon the spirits of the earth and sky to aid me in my battle against the darkness. The night seemed to stretch on forever as I stood my ground, the bell's clang reverberating through my very soul. But as the first light of dawn began to break on the horizon, a change swept through the air. The ringing of the bell faltered, and the darkness that had surrounded me seemed to dissipate. With a final burst of energy, I channeled all my courage and conviction into one last incantation. The ground trembled beneath my feet, and a blinding light enveloped the bell. The curse that had bound the Bellringer for centuries began to unravel, and the creature's malevolent energy waned. In that moment, I knew that I had won the battle against fear and darkness. The legend of the Bellringer had been confronted, and its power weakened by the light of knowledge and courage. It would no longer hold sway over my family or anyone else who dared to challenge it. As the first rays of the sun bathed the fields in a warm glow, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The weight of generations of fear and terror had been lifted, and in its place, there was a newfound sense of freedom and strength. I knew that my great-grandma's story would live on, not as a tale of horror but as a testament to the power of facing our fears and embracing the light within us. I returned to my great-grandma's side, knowing that she had been with me every step of the way, guiding me through the darkness and into the light. I shared with her the victory over the Bellringer, and her eyes sparkled with pride and relief. "You did it, my dear," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "You broke the cycle of fear and darkness that has plagued our family for so long." From that day on, the legend of the Bellringer became a story of courage and resilience in my family. We passed it down through the generations, not as a tale of horror but as a reminder of the strength that lies within each of us. And every year, on the night of the autumn equinox, we gather around the fire, sharing stories of bravery and hope, knowing that as long as we keep the light of knowledge and courage alive, we will never be truly alone in the darkness.